G'day everyone, Jason Nunn, Fisherman's Warehouse, Tuckawad Marks Point, with a bit of a late Friday fishing report. Of course, behind me here, Belmont Bay. We're up at Marks Point, the drop over, just over to the right of me here. Tonight, of course, will be basically the first prawn run for 2024. Tomorrow night will probably be a little bit better, but the tides, when you think about it, it's overcast. We've had southerly winds now for 24 hours, and it's been quite gusty at times. Gives the advantage when we start to see a lot of prawns get pushed from the bottom of the lake up. Tomorrow morning, high tide is around about 4:15 a.m. So we're looking at around about an 11 o'clock low tide, and then of course by 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, it'll swing back around to high. With that in mind, today, or tonight in fact, about 7:15, change of the tide at the drop over. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock, change of the tide, which will be perfect. So tonight, definitely worth a go, and I think tonight there'll be quite a bit of prawn activity out here. And then tomorrow, on for the next 8 nights, the prawn one will continue. We're going to see a big build-up of fish in the estuary as a direct result of it as well. Now let's start a bit at offshore, and I'll give you some ideas of what's happening out wide. Water temp 25, 25 and a half. That big marlin bite has continued. But the marlin themselves, everyone's raising plenty of fish. There's a lot of striped marlin out there. There are a few black marlin as well, and a trickle of current downhill, probably about half a knot to maybe a knot at very best. But a lot of guys raising a lot of fish. But my good mate Duncan Manderson, he went for a fish there yesterday. They got 2 from 10. A lot of other guys raising, half a dozen or a dozen fish at any one time. Switch baiting, running skip baits. And the fish are coming up and they seem to be very doughy. There's a lot of bait. There was reports of bait balls on the shelf yesterday. Slimy mackerel up on the surface and striped marlin just ploughing through them on the surface. Some absolutely spectacular stuff happening out wide, but they are very doughy. I'm just wondering, coming back off that back part of the moon, whether indeed as we start to move into next week, we start to see those fish become very active. But a lot of fish offshore. There's also some very, very good mahi-mahi out on that shelf itself. Some really good fish, 10 to 15 kilo, being reported. So things looking good. In on the farm, on the fad, yes, there's still a few dolphinfish there, but talked to Josh Brewer today, a bit of current out the front. I reckons a couple of knots. So this is where we're starting to see these waters differ, where we've got successions of current lines pressing in from the shelf in towards the shore. And probably the other thing that I reckon has most affected what's going on offshore, because most guys reporting some pretty poor catches offshore. We had 4 or 5 days of continual nor'east wind, and it was howling. Even though early in the mornings back on land here, there wasn't a lot of breeze around, but offshore, it was blowing in excess of 20, 25 knots continually for days. So what that's basically done is just rolled a bit of that water over, and we did see that today, where the water temperature on the beach just was over 20 degrees, where of course last weekend was almost at 23 degrees, and the water was aqua in Swansea Channel. A little bit of a run-in tide this afternoon. It's a big lazy tide. It's not a real big tide, these afternoon run-in tides. There's a lot of greenness to the water. So I think that this is what you're going to find. We've dropped a little bit in temperature, so it's put the offshore fish down. So the guys are now struggling a little bit to find trag, and those bonito, they're a bit skittish. There's only a few bonito around, but guys battling to get fish offshore. And I do think that what's happened is we might have a little bit of cold water on the bottom from that rollover from those nor'easters. If the sou'easter continues the next couple of days, that will improve the situation. Although Sunday, we're certainly going to get some nor'east winds in the afternoon, and Monday in particular, those nor'easters will swing back around. So hopefully it will repair itself over the next few days. The beaches, still plenty of whiting around and a lot of dart, but again, with that drop in water temperature on the beach, it means fishing's a little bit tougher. My suggestion would be is try to fish the run out tide or the low tide on the beach and find those gutters that are a little bit shallower, allowing that water to warm up a bit, because as that tide starts to push back in on the run in, it'll cool off, and no doubt they will go off the bite. Kingies at the bridge, yes. There have been some good kingies up there. I was talking to a few guys today. Haven't been able to stop some of those fish with like 50 or 80 pound braid. But that's the main reason is, of course, the kingfish, that's their home. So they know every little snag and rock possible up there, and they'll just reef you in there. But some great entertainment happening up at the bridge at the present moment. Poppers and, of course, live squid. And talking of squid, we'll see this build-up of squid now with this prawn run. So basically what's going to happen is as that prawn run rolls through the next few nights into late next week, we'll start to see quite a few squid here behind us gather up at Marks Point drop over and or be on the seaward side of the bridge, particularly early in the mornings, because basically overnight the squid will come back up out of these areas and then hunt down those prawns that are leaving the estuary. So we'll start to see some good improvements as far as squid go. There's been some cracking fish getting caught on the flats, beautiful class of whiting at the present moment. Tube worms, again, we got another delivery only just 5 minutes ago. So tube worms, the pick for the whiting. There are a lot of fish now starting to get on surface, and this week in particular will be outstanding if you want to get on the shallows at low tide and walk around and start using some sugar pens and working that surface for whiting, because it's going to be picture perfect with that low tide in the middle of the day. The water will be at its warmest and those fish will be really active to surface because they will be feeding on the prawns that are leaving the estuary. A lot of bream in the system, and some of the things that I've heard this week as well, a couple of guys have made comments. They've actually seen balls of whiting on the flats. There were some reports about a week ago over in Swansea, but today I've got another one where it's continued on the flats over here at the back. Balls of whiting on the surface, splashing the top of the surface, basically spawning. And that's what we're starting to see, that real spawn process going through, but not only on whiting, but of course flathead. And quite a number of flathead around. A lot of these smaller fish getting caught, fish 45s to 55s are common, and that is evident that they are the male of the range, and of course those bigger females they're clustering up with all those males laying on top as that spawning process continues to right through to the end of January and obviously into the beginning of February. Still some good reports of kings in the lake, and there's been some really nice dew, and there hasn't, not only dew here, but I've got some good solid reports today, some really nice dew inside Newcastle Harbour, and there's been the odd one up on Stockton Beach. But again, that water, you just got to keep your eye on it. If it's cold, that will shut the process down, but it's encouraging to see the Hunter River fish as well as it has been over the last 3 or 4 week period. Crabs, surprisingly enough, guys, they've made a little bit of a resurgence again. However, the reports are they're releasing a lot of jennies at the moment and a lot of small, undersized males. So just keep that in mind and then just move around. All in all, guys, the first report for 2024, we're batting on. I'll keep you updated with what's going on down the warehouse. We've only got a few weeks to go. I'll see you next Friday. Have a great time.